Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Rock and Roll podcast. Check out this record here and ready to combat those who didn't like the last time we did an episode like this. My name is Frank, and with me is my good friend who's always by my side, Mark.
Make me sound so clingy.
well, okay. You can always find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music Podcast, and of course, what we're doing here on YouTube.
But when you ask, great question. Thank you so much for asking. New episodes drop each and every Friday-ish.
That's right. If you're hearing us for the first time, welcome. We review records and we have lots of musical discussions. So tell your friends. So if all your friends, are all of a sudden passing up those Pearl Jam records in the store, reaching for something a little better, that's probably because of us.
Yeah, that's right.
In addition to our reviews, we do spotlight episodes and even looking at some rock and roll mysteries.
Ooh. Okay, so you definitely want to check out our verse series where Frank and I will duke it out on behalf of two bands or albums for something we like to call total stereo domination.
Nice.
Thank you.
While you're checking that out, be sure to check out the Instagram and the Facebook group. Hopefully these episodes, of course, will leave you wanting more of our musical goodness. And if you got a record that you want us to check out, drop us a comment where you find us. Maybe we'll do it. Maybe not, but maybe we will. And while you're at it, subscribe, rate, and review. So, of course, I always say this, Mark, Led Zeppelin II, the follow-up to our Led Zeppelin I episode. And again, I want to reiterate that the intent here is to objectively look at their catalog because they were never a big influence on us. Okay. So a better way to do it than to take each album and then conclude if we feel the consensus rating is justified or perhaps it's not. Now that's us not just trying to take a dump on the band that so many of you love out there. That's not the intent at all. This is us going through a self-discovery to really see if we miss something along the way. I stress that because last time we did this on the old YouTube, they seemed that it's clickbait. And I'm here to say it's not clickbait at all. Okay. So please listen to the episode. Mark, you're anxious, right, to jump into this record, especially after that first one fell a little flat for you, right?
Yeah, I am, Frank. You know, that first album, despite having a handful of classics, didn't feel like it had much direction, and the band's all over the place approach just really, it really threw me off. And the amount of repurposed stuff, again, it really threw me off. Only being familiar with the hits, I wasn't expecting Led Zeppelin 1 to be what it was. So getting into 2, I'm looking to see if they have more of a cohesive sound, and if it's more of the same kind of misguided idea and thievery as before, or like I said, will it be more cohesive? I don't know. So I mean, I do know, but you know, that's the way I went into it.
Well, let's pick up where we left off, right, on for the last episode. So Led Zeppelin 1 was released January 12th, 1969, and October 22nd, 1969, we get Led Zeppelin II. So in the same calendar year, produced by Jimmy Page. This album was recorded from January to August in various sessions in the UK and North America while the band was on tour. This album would show an evolution from the blues tunes that we heard on the first record to more of a riff bass heavy sound. In fact, many consider this the band's heaviest album. Right? That's what they say. Because it was written on tour, there was a sense of urgency and improvisation during the songwriting process. The variety of recording studios produced some favorable setups and some non-favorable setups. Robert Plant would complain about this. Engineer Eddie Kramer gave credit to Page for the sound of the album. Mark, what's a Led Zeppelin record without any drama, right?
Looking back on their career and Page and Plant as a duo, it almost feels like the drama was part and parcel with the rest of the catalog. It feels a lot like they loved to be at somebody's throat just at all times.
It's inherent to them. They just love doing it. Like last time, we looked at the album's cover. So let's look at the album's cover and artwork. So the first record, of course, gave us the rendition of the Hindenburg disaster. This time around, we get a design based on a poster from David Juniper, a student at Sutton Art College. The design we see is based off of a photograph, and I'm going to ruin this word, of the Jagdstaffel 11 Division of the German Air Force during World War I, known as the Flying Circus, led by Red Baron, not the pizza.
Not Snoopy.
Nor Snoopy, right? Okay. Four of the flyers' heads were replaced by members of the band with facial hair and sunglasses. There are also faces of other people, such as French actress Delphine Seyrig. And then in the background is an outline of the Zeppelin from the first record, or from the Hindenburg. Mark, you're looking at this artwork. How do you think this stacks up actually against the first record?
Compared to the first album cover, this one's really dull. That said, this looks like pop art from 1969. It is interesting that, like much of their music, they chose a piece of art that was one thing and simply slapped their faces on it. I mean, it kind of tells you a lot about their career. I mean, like the cover of Led Zeppelin 1, they were retrofitting it for their needs. So stylistically, it matches, right? They're a pair in that way. But again, compared to Led Zeppelin 1, this is boring as hell.
Yeah, I like the Led Zeppelin one better because then they made it at least like, that lithograph style, black and white, a little red touch to it. So it was almost a piece of art. This to me is kind of just it plopped together. Here we go.
A lot of poo-poo brown on this one.
Yeah, not fan of the brown. No. Well, let's get to the song. So it's 9 tracks, 41 minutes and 38 seconds. Track 1, Whole Lotta Love. Songwriting credits, Page, Plant, Bonham, Jones, and Dixon. Yeah. That's Willie Dixon, who wrote the song You Need Love, which came out in 1962 with a famous recording, of course, by Muddy Waters. Now, in 1966, I want to note, the band Small Faces released a song called You Need Loving. Vocalists and guitarists for that band, Steve Marriott, stated that Page and Plant would attend their gigs and expressed interest in the song. Here we are already, Mark. You need love. You need loving. Whole lot of love. It's a very sexually charged song for the time in the key of E. About a minute 30 into the song, we get a breakdown of the drums and some backwards vocals by Plant, often regarded as one of the band's best songs and greatest of all time. Mark, what's your thoughts on this whole thing I just said?
Is this regarded as one of the band's best songs? Because, I mean, okay. Let's get the monkey off my back, at least. Good on them for actually crediting Willie Dixon right out of the gate. I don't love this as the album's opener. The drum break and the guitar sound effects and Plant's orgasming right off the bat sets a weird tone for the rest of the album, which goes in very different direction. It feels more like a closing number to me. There are so many effects going on that it's really... it really feels super jumbled to me, and I just don't know why people insist that this is one of their best songs or one of the best rock and roll songs of all time. I'm just baffled by that statement.
Track 2, what is and what should never be. This is just Page and Plant on the writing credits. One of the first songs to be recorded with the iconic Les Paul that Page would be known for. Compared to the Telecaster that was used in the first record, you're going to get a bolder tone as opposed to a brighter tone. So it's perfect if you're looking for some crunch with those riffs. The verses actually showcase Plant's vocals with phasers, which I prefer, phase effect, which I prefer they didn't exist, because to me, it just creates absolute distraction. I did enjoy when the song simmered down and allowed for Page to give us that impressive soloing. I know Whole Lotta Love is more popular, but Mark, I actually like this composition better. What about you?
Yeah, I like this song a lot more too. I just don't get putting these effects on Plant's voice in the opening. Otherwise, it's a pretty solid blues rock number, right? It is interesting to see the band using these peaks and valleys approach, 2 songs in a row where we get a quiet part and then a loud part and then a quiet part and a loud part and a riff and then a loud part and then, wash repeat. All I'm saying is that the song structure wise, the pattern is starting to become a little bit more clear here. That may be part of their signature sound, and some people might just be like yelling in their car right now, like, dude, what are you talking about? That's just what Led Zeppelin sounds like. I don't know. Or maybe it's just something they borrowed from Jeff Beck. I don't know.
Oh, there we go. Track 3, the Lemon song. We love a good lemon, right, Mark?
We sure do.
Howlin' Wolf, aka Chester Burnett, in 1964, released the song Killing Floor, which is the basis for this song. What this rendition features is a loud and chaotic jamming, which gives us the heaviness that we didn't see in the first record. Plant is also singing the blues at a hyper fast pace during points of the song. My wish is if there were more memorable melodies in the rendition and their rendition of the Killing Floor. I think adding that would have separated itself from the original tune, as opposed to me thinking it was basically that Howling Wolf song with just some more bells and whistles. Mark, what about you here?
I like the tone. I like the energy here. It's nice to see them break that pattern that I was just picking up on. So they're really keeping it a little bit more interesting in the album without veering too far off the track, but we all know that it's coming back. And my one wish was that I was listening to Howling Wolf's Killing Floor instead.
There you go. Track 4. Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Well, you'll see. Page and Plant with the writing credits on this one. Plant penned the lyrics as a tribute to his then wife, Maureen. It's a delicate ballad with very 1960s pop sensibility in the key of D major. I'm sure Greta Van Fleet used this as the template for their song "You're the One."
No.
I know it's in the late 60s here, and the organs were a thing, but I could do without its full use. I'm not saying don't have it in the song, but I could do without its full use. This is where I would like to have a 2-guitar song, so you get nice full chords, and then the solos and the riffs over it. I think that would have added a little bit more meat to it. That's just my personal taste. Mark, did you want to thank me yet for picking this episode?
I sure do, buddy. Thanks. Yeah, the organ definitely feels like, hey, the 60s are almost over. Let's not allow people to forget that we happened in the 60s kind of moment. Hey, why wasn't this the closer, or at least like on the back half of the album, second to last, maybe? Just like with Led Zeppelin 1, I don't feel like they were thinking about the album as a whole when they were putting it together. It feels like they're just stacking songs on top of each other without regard to the whole album flow. I could totally be wrong. Page was known for being a control freak, so maybe this was intentional, but it's hard to understand why he would have chosen this kind of placement at all.
Yeah. I hear you. Well, track 5 is Heartbreaker, an iconic riff that moves up a step, and the late great Eddie Van Halen would cite that the solo was the origin behind the tapping technique. He stated the following: I think I got the idea of tapping watching Jimmy Page do his Heartbreaker solo back in 1971. He was doing a pull off to an open string, and I thought, wait a minute, open string pull off, I could do that, but what if I used my finger as the nut, moved it around? I just kind of took it and ran with it. Mark, where are you on the song Heartbreaker?
I'm right where I just hope somebody can edit all of those dirty words you just said into like just you saying a really dirty. And Frank, this is a solid blues rock number. Plant's vocals are probably some of the best on the album here. Page's solo is really cool, and Bonham and John Paul Jones are just absolutely on point. I wish this was the album we were just rocking to numbers like this, but Heartbreaker is a cool number, man.
Yeah. Well, what else I think is a cool number is the next one, Living Loving Mage. She's just a woman about a groupie who used to stalk the band and is one of, ironically, Page's least favorite Led Zeppelin songs. It was never performed in concert. I actually like because it's short and punchy by nature. It actually possesses some of those memorable melodies that are not found in the straight up blues renditions. It also doesn't drag, and being that it's under 3 minutes, I'm a fan of that. Mark, how you holding up here, buddy?
Page hated it, and it's probably one of my favorite songs on the album. It's got much more 60s pop appeal than the rest of the album, and John Paul Jones gets some really bass licks in here too. The lyrics are kind of nonsense, but I don't think anyone is here for Plant to change their life with any of his songs' lyrics, and that's absolutely fine. Not everyone can be Springsteen before the 80s. You know what I mean? I definitely agree with you. This is a cool number. It's probably from another band that they should have done that was more pop oriented. Because I think this would have been another really cool song.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And track 7, Ramble On. So influenced by Lord of the Rings.
Why not?
Mortar and Golem are referenced. I'm all in for a good tune based on a literary work. And there are some high spots with the overall energy, but I was, for the most part, I think, wanting this song to end. Speaking of the end, the outro, I found it tough with, again, the echoing of the vocals. It was really an assault on my senses. I guess, Mark, am I just rambling on here?
You aren't. Plant might be a bit, though.
Yeah.
You'll notice this is the second time he's referenced 10 years gone by in the album. The end of the song is interesting as that audio assault, as that audio assault peaks on Frank's senses, they start fading the song out, and you can almost miss the addition of him referring to his baby as a bluebird, whatever that means. It's a long fade out too, which is like, it's kind of weird. It's like 40 seconds. All of a sudden the song just like starts careening downward, which sucks because when Moby Dick kicks, the song levels jump dramatically up, right?
Right.
So it's this really odd juxtaposition of sound for, an album put together by such a control freak. It seems like, I don't know, maybe he didn't actually give a shit the way people think he did. Yeah.
Well, again, back to your point earlier with the album flow, that's another example. So there you go. Well, 8 is Moby Dick, as Mark was saying, spawned from jamming and improvisation in the studio. We have an instrumental that has a drum solo that, when performed live, went anywhere between 10 and 30 minutes. Bonham would break his drumsticks, often from playing too hard and even causing him to draw blood. Mark, this is your department all the way with the drums. What do you say? One of the greatest drum solos ever?
It really could be, man. However, let's talk about the song first. I love the clickety clack snare burst for the song's intro, even though it's really kind of just like a quick verse together. The way they come in together is great, but I hate that they stop it dead for a full 4 count before Bonham comes in with the solo. It feels like they could they could have worked out a smoother transition for him, at least in the editing, so that the song, for the editing of the song, so he didn't look like he didn't know what he was doing. It seems like, to me, and I'm just speculating here, that Page wanted to steal a little bit of his thunder by making his signature track poke a little hole in it. It's just me. He was such a dynamic drummer, and to hear him really take his time building up the solo and beating the hell out of it is really cool. He didn't play a massive kit yet, which is really important to note.
Right.
So his drummer heroes played a huge part in what makes this solo so cool. You can really hear that influence in his soloing. We're talking about guys like Buddy Rich, the old jazz drummers from like the 30s and 40s that were such a big influence on him, despite having never played in any jazz bands that we know of. With that said, to answer your question, Frank, yeah, there is a probability it will be remembered as one of the greatest solos in rock and roll history. And John Bonzo Bonham earned the shit out of that designation. I think that's absolutely fair.
Wow. Awesome. Well, track 9, Mark, the last one, we're bringing it on home. Willie Dixon again gets writing credits, as the intro and outro are straight up the same, with the middle of the track being original. It's loud and it's heavy with some classic Zeppelin riffs. It's something we haven't heard already in the short album of only 9 songs, which is a blues riff. And guess what? The key of E. As someone who prefers minor keys, such as myself, I would have liked to have seen them make an appearance. I think that would have been a good and somber way to end a record. Mark, do you think they brought it on home with this number?
No, man. Coming in off the high of Moby Dick, there's no way this minute and 45-second long ass intro is going to satisfy the groove. They work it into works, but without a doubt, what's the point in a blues number here? It's so like, it just pisses me off that I can't, like, it's making me upset. I mean, like, good for them for giving credit again where it's due to Willie Dixon, the music that inspired them, and for doing a solid job of paying homage to it. But that overbloated intro just drags the end of the album out and pays off nothing. There's just nothing there. There's no satisfaction to it, especially after you come off that high of Moby Dick and you just get this long, boring intro. You're like, what is it? Was this just left over? Did you just needed to fill the last minute of time on this thing because you rushed it through during tour?
At only 9 tracks. Well, so that wraps up the album. But what we want to do, like last time, is take a couple of things such as reception, legacy, of course, our assessment, and then in there a couple other factors. So let's go through the reception of Led Zeppelin II. It was the band's first #1 in the U.S., knocking Abbey Road from the top spot. By 1970, it had 3 million in American sales. Whole Lot of Love was the band's biggest hit. And this album helped Zeppelin become a sought-after international attraction. Now, some of the initial reviews are not overflowing with positivity, citing that it was just one heavy song extended over 2 sides of a record. A month after its release, though, it went certified gold. Mark, your thoughts on all that?
Frank, you know I like a good blues rock band, and this is definitely a blues rock album. There are clearly some 60s pop influences here as well, though. And while I wouldn't say it's one heavy song extended across both sides of the album, I can imagine at the time it came out, it would have been the heaviest rock album to hit the mainstream and take off, which would have been jarring to folks coming up against an album like Abbey Road. So I kind of understand why it threw people off, but at the same time, you know, you and I have the benefit of hindsight, and we can kind of go like, is it that heavy?
Right. Which we'll get to. Legacy. So Stephen Thomas Erlewine, editor of All Music, said that the record provided the blueprint for all the heavy metal bands that followed. It is also said that it was a more focused effort where the band was honing in on their sound. Robert Santelli, author of the Big Book of Blues, said the band quickly moved from its blues rock influence and went into the unexplored territory of hard rock. It was also credited with the shift in hard rock and eventual metal songs being riff-based. And of course, Page's work in Heartbreaker leading the way for people like Eddie Van Halen. Mark?
I think some of those statements are pretty fair, right? This is more of a focused album than Led Zeppelin I, or at least it feels that way. But that's a low bar if you remember my complaints about Led Zeppelin I.
Oh, I do.
To additionally echo what I said there when I was talking about Led Zeppelin creating a genre, they pushed hard rock into the mainstream maybe, but this was really still a blues rock album at best with their heavier album, right? And it's fair to say that they laid some of the groundwork for many metal albums to come, in the same way that Steppenwolf, The Who, Deep Purple, and Black Sabbath did, because they all put out albums this year as well.
Yeah.
The difference being that Sabbath took the same rock and blues roots and made it a whole new sound. Didn't just simply reshape something else. They created something new with it.
Yeah. Very true.
Yep.
All right, so it's time for our assessment. Here we go again, and this is the part, of course, we break it down, and we break it down by musicianship. Break it down. Musicianship, song choices, and quality, and then we're gonna give the rating. So, Mark, let's start with musicianship.
Sure.
The quality is there, and from what we saw on the first record, that hasn't changed for me. The recording in different areas, therefore causing different techniques to be used, can be heard. And I'm sure many out there can point those particulars out. And therefore it maybe not being best or consistent, but I don't think, to me personally, it was a hindrance. Jones on bass is still giving us a great performance, and Bonham on drums was really showing why he was one of the all-time greats. The shift to a harder style, I think, fits a character like Bonham a little bit better. He was able to be more erratic and getting out that inner demon, so to speak. I'm sure that was very therapeutic for him. Now, Page's guitar playing sounds smoother and full on tone as a Les Paul owner, this guy. That's the strength of that guitar. It's very full and natural tone, but when you need to crank it up and reach some of those high notes, it's there for you like a very loyal companion. Now we get to Plant's vocals. I'd rather have no effects on the vocals. The phaser and the echo really diminish the experience for me. It's distracting. And even in the highlight, it highlights how the vocals can just become irritating after a while. Mark?
Yeah, look, John Paul Jones can be seen as the weakest link in this band, and that's just not the case at all. He's a stellar bassman, and you can really hear him work his magic here. As for Bonham, he lives up to his legacy on this album, right? His timing is impeccable, his grooves are tight, and his solos and fills are bombastic and cathartic. Page's guitar play is, as his legacy would suggest, explosive and powerful. Plant's singing is fine. As Frank mentioned, I could use less effects, and personally the whole like overly sexy thing does nothing for me.
No.
I don't need him simulating an orgasm on a record. It just does nothing for me.
Or me.
That said, I'm with Frank on this one. Stop putting shit on his voice. Like, leave him alone. Let him sing naturally. And
Right.
I think that's where some of those different recording setups are really the problem here, because they had to mess with his voice to get it, and you don't get a consistent sound out of him specifically throughout these recordings. Could that just be Page making sure that Plant doesn't sound as good as he does and fucking with him because he needs to be the hero of the band the whole time?
No.
I don't know. So yeah, I mean, that's when it comes to musicianship, that's how I feel about it.
Well, song choice isn't song quality. So 3 out of the 9 songs were covers or renditions, which is an improvement. And I enjoyed more of the original Plant Page pen tunes than what I just mentioned. It's only it's only 9 songs. So I know it's not a lot of tracks to separate yourself, especially if you're going in a particular style. However, I'd like to point out the following. A Whole Lot of Love was in the key of E. What Is and What Should Never Be was in the key of A. These are all major, by the way. Lemon was in the key of E. Thank You was in the key of D. Heartbreaker was in the key of A. Living Loving was in the key of A. Ramble On was in the key of E. Moby Dick was in the key of D. And Bring It On Home was in the key of E. My point in bringing this up is that they're all major. And I think that's why many of the riffs and the songs maybe did blend together and did sound the same. Because when I was then breaking them down on the riffs, I was like, oh, it's kind of just little variations. Now, I know what someone's going to say. Some are going to say, oh, well, most blue tunes are played in the key of E and A. Oh, okay. And do something different. Like, I get this is 1969 and things are still forming within the song construction landscape. So there wasn't maybe a need to venture out yet, but this was the venturing out, right? This is what it was supposed to be. However, I felt that this has led to a lack of variance, and I would have liked some, like I said before, minor chords and just more thought when giving us an album. Maybe again back to the flow thing that you were saying, Mark, with 9 songs where 4 of them are in E, 3 are in A, 2 are in D. Some may think that's not a big deal, but it's Led Zeppelin, right? One of the greatest bands ever, regardless of our opinion. I expect more anytime I see their name slapped to a piece of music. Mark?
I'll agree with you that more original songs was a nice change, and credit where it's due. Up front was a pleasant change for the guys that they borrowed songs from. However, Bring It On Home felt like it was a leftover from the first album. Whole Lot of Love and What It Is and What Should Never Be, with their heavy use of effects, made them feel like they were from just another project as well, and feel out of place against the rest of the album. Bringing me back to my earlier statement that when it came to the overall flow of this album, it just doesn't work. How do you not close on Moby Dick? I mean, it makes no sense to me. Heartbreaker would have been a much better opener. Whole Lot of Love isn't a bad opener, but with all the reverb on the guitar in that opening riff, it feels like you're picking up a conversation after an insult, and you're just not sure what the hell is going on. Plus, once you get past that opening riff, it's not an opening track. Again, maybe another closer or the last track on the A side makes more sense. but as the opener, it just doesn't work for me, and it really starts the album off on this odd footing. But what do I know? I don't have any gold albums, let alone a gold album with a guitar doodling that sounds like farts in the opening track.
There you go. All right, so here it comes, that point where we go over, under, just right. So here are the rankings. Many guitarists ranked it in the top 50 influential guitar albums of all time. That's Guitarist, the publication too, might add. Mojo rated it one of the 100 greatest records of all time at number 41. Stupid and Meaningless Rolling Stone had it at 123 on their 500 greatest albums of all time, which they'll probably retract and apologize for. Rock Hard had it at 318 for its 500 greatest rock and metal albums, and it was on the 1001 albums you need to hear before you die. And from fans, it seems like it is in the top tier when ranked against the other Zeppelin records. So here I am, still not influenced by this record, Mark, and right. I'll tell you why. Yeah, so I think when we're hearing these songs, maybe we're in that crowd that we're hearing it differently maybe than other people. Could it be our age? I mean, listen, by the time Led Zeppelin became to be a known entity in our world, we already heard grunge and punk and metal and rock bands that gave us our initial influences. So for me, I was just indifferent. Maybe if this was 1969, that would be different. However, I'm also going to refer to some science here, Mark, and the fact that this just translates differently for us. Now, here we go. Some boring stuff, but important stuff. Harvard Medical School did a study and found that when the inner ear receives sounds, it triggers a reaction from the different brain cells that are responsible for transmitting that information to your brain. Okay. The triggering forms different types of patterns that in turn touch different parts of the brain, explaining why we associate certain sounds with certain memories and feelings. Now, when sound bounces off structures of the inner ear, it reflects off the ear and off the bones in the head. So according to the Acoustical Society of America, even the slightest difference in things like shape and bone density make a huge difference in the vibrations that we ultimately hear. All right. So in a nutshell, it doesn't move me, but it does move others. And I think this is a better record than the first one. And I would give it 6.5 out of 10. And I feel it's slightly overrated with regards to the previously mentioned accolades. Mark.
You make a great point, Frank. This isn't 1969. So for us, it's not breaking any new ground. And it wasn't a part of our youth to pave the way for the things we ended up listening to. And that paved new ground for us. Though I'm sure if we talk to our influences about it, they'd probably say it had a bigger effect on them than it did for us, right? Yeah. Definitely better than Led Zeppelin I. I'm going to say this gets a bit overrated as an album. Yeah, I think your accolades there kind of help me justify that. Well, it's structured better than one. If we're honest about the band, we know that that's actually a lower bar than anyone wants to give them credit for, because that first album wasn't structured at all, and this thing was clearly barely even structured. The album as a whole, we're focused solely on individual tracks without regards to how the whole album flows together. This is an album podcast. I agree with you. 6.5 out of 10 seems fair. So I'll tag along with you on that rating. Slightly overrated, 6.5.
And to everyone out there, I'm hopeful and I'm wanting the next ones to be better. Okay. So I'm wanting, as we go along on these, for them to hopefully get better, and maybe for us to find our favorite Zeppelin album in the mix,
For sure.
Absolutely.
It'd be cool. I would love to not hate a record.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Oh, well, Mark, listen, that was fun. What do we have in store next week?
So this had me thinking about blues rock a lot, and I thought, what is the polar opposite of Led Zeppelin that still kind of qualifies as bluesy rock? And that would be punk blues. So we're gonna do 2013's Desperation by the band The Oblivions. When you look them up, you're just going to look up Oblivions. These guys are from Memphis, Tennessee. Really crazy kind of album. We'll get into their whole backstory because there's a lot of backstory, lots of other bands that they were in, lots of moving pieces. Really kind of interesting band. A lot of fun record. It doesn't take itself nearly as seriously. People are gonna be like so fucking pissed when I give it a better rating than Led Zeppelin II. But look, again, this is about what moves us. Led Zeppelin II, I think it's 6.5, considering how poorly Led Zeppelin I did. It did a better job, but I mean,
I agree. And listen, you know, when they start coming after us, I can simply say, what exactly that we said verbatim are you disagreeing with? That's all I'm gonna want to know. So
Moby Dick rules, though.
There you go. Absolutely. Okay, cool. I now looking at this cover, Mark, this is one I'm sure in my deep dives of Spotify that I've seen before, but I've never given it the attention, and I'm excited for that. I'm glad you kind of piggybacked off of what we've been doing and kind of went with this. So I'm really excited for Desperation, the 2013 album by it's Oblivions or The Oblivions.
Oblivions. It's the easiest way to find it is just Oblivions, but anywhere you see them written about, they're always referred to as The Oblivions. So I mean, it's one of those things. It's just an odd name.
Cool, man. Cool. Well, I love it. Can't wait. It's gonna be fun. Thank you everyone for joining. Remember to like, subscribe, rate, review, and of course, be safe out there.
Oh man, can you believe we made it to the end of another episode? Thanks for listening, because without you, like I always say, it's just me and Frank having the same conversation, but we get to do intros and outros now. So say it with me. Oh my, oh hell yes, oh bye-bye. Did you guys trash Led Zeppelin again?
I think my mom likes my mom has the thing for Jim Morrison, not for Robert Plant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. She gets hot under the collar for Jim Morrison.
Oh, okay.